So Immunology and Introductory Microbiology, PTM 2515. Now this course, the first part you are going to do is immunology. Immunology is you just be looking at the immune system and everything like that. That's the first part. And then you are going to do now at the end to do the introductory part. And it's not microbiology, it's just an introductory part because microbiology will be in third year. Okay? So this is it. This topic that we are covering now, if you go in any test one actually for microbiology, these are the questions we'll be seeing. Now I've made this topic in such a way that we are covering the immunology part, we're also covering anatomy because you also see this topic in anatomy. Meaning that I will not teach this topic in anatomy because we'd have covered it, the lymphatic system. And then also when you go in an exam, a lot of questions you find will be from this topic, like just from the previous year's exam. And what they did is that they just brought test one and it was all about this same thing, and that was an exam. So you see that questions are just repeating and repeating. So make sure that you understand this one very well. You have test one after you do the immunology part, and then you are going to have test two after you do the introductory microbiology. That will be like near the end. And the microbiology is very simple because you just do, I think, two topics to introduce microbiology in second year. And that will just be looking at bacteria and also how you can do some tests of some diseases and those things. So that will just be it. And then, so it's one of those courses which you can enjoy, and it's one of those courses where you can get a B plus or a B. I'm not saying A, but you can get an A. But you can get a B or a B plus, but you can get an A anyway. Anything is possible. That is because mostly test one you write it online, test two you also write it online. The exam will be a repetition of those two tests. So if you just understand what we are doing, you are one of those who will be able to carry an A or an A plus. So immunology is a study of the immune system. It will include the way the body is going to be able to respond to pathogens. A pathogen is just anything that causes disease. Okay, the is damaged, what is going to happen, and what is the role of the immune system in fighting disease. That is immunology. The immune system will comprise of cells, tissues, molecules, and just a lot of other things which make sure that they resist infection. Immunity itself is being resistant to pathogens. So if we say this one has immunity to this, it means that they are resistant to that thing that causes disease. An immune response, if you hear of immune response, it is a coordinated response. So immune cells are going to come in, different things are going to come in to make sure that they fight anything that wants to cause you to be sick. That is an immune response. So what are the functions of the immune system? Please don't take anything to be too easy here now. Okay, don't take anything to be too easy. Trust me, these same here functions of the immune system, they'll bring in more to this. And then you forget that homeostasis is there, or maybe you've forgotten the meaning. So, what are the functions of the immune system? Why should we have these cells, organs, and also these barriers to protect us from infections? One thing is to prevent and eradicate infection. The immune system wants to prevent infection. So that you don't get sick, the immune system is there. And also to eradicate if there is already an infection, to be able to kill or to take off that infection, that is to eradicate the infection. That is one function of the immune system. And also defense against growth of tumor cells. A tumor is just a growth. Okay, your normal body, you know how it is supposed to be, but you start seeing maybe one part of your body starts growing very much, that is a tumor. So the immune system will be there to kill those cells which cause tumors. And also the immune system is there for homeostasis. Homeostasis is maintaining a constant internal environment. Now, what you mean by internal environment can be maintaining the normal temperature of the body, maintaining the normal pH of the body, maintaining the normal metabolic work of the body. So the environment inside should be okay, the same way it's supposed to be working. Another function of the immune system is to maintain autology. What do you mean by that? The immune system is going to be able to respond to foreign grafts and proteins. So, for example, what you mean by foreign graft? Say, for example, someone was bent, and then that place, like, there's no, there's no skin. So what you do is that you remove a skin from another person, you come and put it at that point. So that is a foreign graft. You are basically transferring tissue from one person to another, like that. So the immune system wants to maintain autology, meaning that it fights anything that does not belong to the body, whether it is a protein, because normally our bodies have got some proteins that they know that belong to them. For example, if I'm blood group A, my body can only recognize the protein, we call it antigen, the antigen A. So if you give me blood group B, my body is going to respond because it doesn't know that protein or that antigen. So these are the functions of the immune system. Please, if you have got any question at any point, be free to ask. Okay. Now let's talk about immunity. The immune system, as we have said, is going to be divided into two. You have got the innate immune system and the adaptive immune system. And these terms will become your song in this topic. All right, innate, adaptive. I mean, in this course. So the innate immunity is the first line of defense. So what happens is this: at the very beginning, when you are exposed to something that can cause disease, what is going to fight that thing that can cause disease at the very beginning is what we call the innate immune system. It is also called the natural, because it's just like it just happens by itself. Look at yourself. You have got hairs in your nose. Why those hairs? They want to fight anything that is entering your respiratory system that can be harmful, and that is natural. So the innate immune system is also called the natural immunity. So this kind of immunity will offer immediate protection, meaning that immediately you are exposed to something that can cause disease, the innate immune system will be able to respond immediately. Please take note. As simple as this seems, these are the questions we'll be seeing. Okay. Again, the mechanism, the way the innate immune system works is that they are going to be present before microbial invasion, meaning that even before you get sick, the innate immune system is there to protect you from a possibility of being sick. That is opposite from the adaptive immune system. The adaptive immune system is the second line of defense, meaning that it will come in after the innate it fails. Okay. So the adaptive is also known as acquired, because you are not born with it. The innate immune system, you are born with it. You are born with the skin. The skin is there to protect you from things to enter your body. So it's innate, it's natural. But the adaptive immune system comes in after your natural fails. So it is also known as the acquired immune system. And this one, the protection is delayed, meaning that you can be sick now, but I mean, something that can cause disease can enter your body. The adaptive will not respond, not until after some time it gets organized. And adaptive immune system is specialized defense, meaning that it will attack certain things. The innate immune system can attack just anything that it knows that it does not belong to the body to attack. But the adaptive is specific. Okay, this will attack these things which may cause malaria. This will attack these things which cause HIV. This will attack this. So that's being specialized. Hope that is clear. Now let's talk about the types of immunity. Immunity, you need to understand that how can you get immunity? Remember that immunity is just a ability to be able to fight anything that can cause disease. How can you get to to have immunity? How can you be in that state of fighting things which can cause disease? So immunity can be acquired actively or passively. This either actively or passively, these ones can also be obtained either naturally or artificially. And I want you to very, very, very much understand this part. Okay? So I'm going to use this table here. The immune system or immunity can be adaptive or innate. We have said the innate is the first line of defense, the adaptive is what will defend you later on, right? The adaptive can be split into two: natural immunity or artificial. Now, everything that you hear of natural, it means that it is happening by itself without any assistance from a man. Artificial means that a man is involved in making. Please understand that natural, it is all about God. Artificial, it is about man. Now, both the natural and artificial can either be passive or active. If you go to natural passive, this every time you hear of passive, it means that something was not is working where it wasn't made. It was made somewhere else and then it went to start working somewhere else. For example, there is a vehicle that is made in China, it can't work there, it comes in Zambia. That is passive. Made somewhere else, working somewhere else. So if we are talking about natural passive, remember natural, we are saying that it is God who is making these things. But then passive, meaning that it is not made where it is working. For example, the mother is going to make antibodies. Antibodies are just things or molecules which fight anything that does not belong to me. So because this is passive, what will happen is my mother will make antibodies. Antibodies fights any protein or any substance that does not belong to me. But that antibody moves from the mother, it goes via the placenta or via breast milk, it goes to the child. So the child starts to use that antibody to fight anything that can cause disease. That is an example of natural passive. Why is it natural? Because the mother produced it without her wanting. It was God who made it to be like that. Why is it passive? Because it moved from the mother to the child. But natural, active, every time you hear of active, it means that something is being made. The body is being involved itself. The body, the same body that will use this, is being involved itself. Okay? So, for example, if I get sick today, I have got malaria. What will happen is that my body will produce antibodies to fight malaria. When I get to be cured, those antibodies will still be in my body. Next time I get malaria, those same antibodies which are already in me will start to fight that malaria because the antibodies were produced in me. Because my body was involved in producing them, that is active. Because it happened by itself, that is natural. Hope we are getting the sense. If we go to artificial, a human being is involved in making. Now, passive means it's not made by the one using it. An example that we use is, let's say you are in a lab, you make antibodies. Those antibodies, let's say this antibody is supposed to fight to be used against, let's say, malaria. It is made in a lab by a human being, and then it is injected in a person. So it is artificial because a man made it. It is passive because it was transferred from somewhere else into the human being. Okay, and then now we have got artificial active. Active means that the body is involved in making. Artificial means that it is not happening by itself. Actually, man is somewhat involved. So for example, what will happen is a human being can get, let's say, a dead let's say dead virus, and we are going to inject that dead virus in you. When we inject that dead virus in you, your body starts to make antibodies to fight that virus. So because it's a human being who injected you the virus, that is artificial. Because your body was now being involved in making antibodies to fight that virus, that is active. So immunization is actually artificial active or active artificial immunity. Hope we have understood this. Okay, this is very important. Hope you not forget in your exam and in your test one, because these things don't, they barely miss. Now let's talk about the component of the immune system. What will make up the immune system? The immune system is going to be basically the lymphatic system. Okay, you are talking about lymph. Now what happens is this: what really is lymph? When blood is moving in your body, you are going to understand. This will make more sense if I teach you the first topic in physiology. When the blood is moving in the blood vessels, blood can actually move out of the blood vessels. And when blood moves out of the blood vessels, it will become what is known as the interstitial fluid. And when that fluid, so interstitial fluid is just a fluid, it's not in cells, it's not in the blood vessel, it's just in the spaces in the body. That's why you can see some people get to have edema, they get to be but they become fat like that. Okay, they are swelling because of fluid building up in those spaces in the body, spaces between cells. So we are saying if the blood moves out of the blood vessels, it becomes the interstitial fluid, the fluid between cells. When that fluid goes into the lymphatic vessels are like blood vessels. So that same fluid goes into the lymphatic vessels, it becomes lymph. That lymph will be transported and it will go back into the veins. It becomes again blood. Okay, so that is how these alternate. So the immune system is going to have lymph. It's also going to have lymphatic vessels. Lymphatic vessels, these are the ones which will be carrying lymph. And then you also have lymphatic organs, all right? The lymphatic organs, these are organs which are also going to be involved in fighting infections. And they include the thymus, the lymph node, the spleen, the tonsils. You need to understand each one of these for anatomy and also for this course. And then you also have cells which are involved in fighting infection. Those are lymphatic cells. So this is what you can see here. This thing in green you can see here is a lymphatic vessel. It carries lymph. And the lymph is going to go and drain into the veins. Don't worry, by as you get to go on, you are going to know. You can only see Sistina Kyrie here, you know it fully. Thoracic duct, you're supposed to know this, okay, and where it is draining. So don't worry, you really know. It's just a matter of time. Now, remember we said that the lymphatic system has got vessels. Now, what are the features of this lymphatic vessels? What are some features? So one thing is that they've got blind ends. In other words, look at this vessel here. At the end of the vessel, you can see that it actually ends in closing like that. In other words, it's closed at the end. It doesn't continuously go. Okay, and then it has got a single layer of overlapping endothelial cells. If we say endothelial cells, and we also understand this very much if we do the first of the epithelial cells in anatomy. Endothelial cells are just flat cells. So we are saying that the lymphatic vessels are made up of flat cells which overlap over each other. So as you can see this here where my cursor is, this is a cell, this one, and you can see it is overlapping with another cell here, and then overlapping with another cell there, another cell there. Another thing is that these vessels are going to allow fluid to move more. They are more permeable to fluid than blood capillaries. So the capillaries might not allow fluid to move out very much and move in very much, but these vessels have got more of that capacity to allow fluid to move in and out. Another important thing is that these lymphatic capillaries are going to be found almost in the entire body, except in some parts. Please understand this. Where are they not going to be found? So where there are no blood vessels, you will not be able to find these. So the places where you don't have blood vessels, we call them avascular. Okay? Vascular means having blood vessels. Avascular, no blood vessels. For example, epithelial cells. You understand what epithelial cells are. For example, your skin, all right? Your skin is an epithelial cell. Basically, there is an epithelial cell. So epithelial cells will just make coverings of the body or some oral cavities. For example, if you enter your mouth, from your mouth all the way to the end where food comes out, that whole portion is surrounded by epithelial cells. So epithelial cells will surround any outside of the body or any space that is lining an organ. So at any place where there's an epithelial cell, we don't expect to have blood vessels. So you don't also expect to have lymphatic capillaries. Examples you can give: epithelial cell, the cornea of the eye, cartilage, and the brain. These guys, they do not have lymphatic vessels. Apart from that, of course, the brain is part of the central nervous system. Also, some portions of the spleen and the red bone marrow, they will not also have lymphatic capillaries. But the most important ones, please, you need to remember: epithelial cells, the cornea of the eye, cartilage, and the brain. I'll give you an example of cartilage. If you hold your neck on what is known as the Adam's apple, you are going to feel some rings. So it's some rings there where air will actually be able to pass. So that is cartilage. Also, when you are having a bone where your joints are, like for example on your elbow or on your knee, there is cartilage for that joint to be formed. Okay, so all those parts. The small intestines have got a special kind of lymphatic capillary and it's called a lacteal. And these lacteals are going to be able to pick up fluid which is just between cells, and that is called the interstitial fluid. Apart from that, they can also pick up dietary lipids, meaning that after you've eaten your food, those lipids are going to be absorbed by these lacteals. So these are the lymphatic capillaries which are found in the GIT or in the small intestines, to be specific. So if you find lymph in this area, the lymph is going to have a milky appearance because they are lipids and it is called chyle or cow. Now, other features of these lymphatic vessels. These lymphatic vessels, they are going to be, just a moment please. Okay, so these lymphatic vessels that we can see, these are the ones you can see in green, the lymphatic vessels. The one you can see in blue is a vein. These ones are lymphatic vessels are going to be three layered. In other words, they have got three layers of cells. I've got one layer of cells, another layer, another layer. But then they are much thinner in comparison to veins. And they have got a lot of valves. These are some questions you'll be seeing as multiple choice in anatomy and in, okay, especially in anatomy. So these guys have got more valves, okay, than in veins. Veins also have valves, but these ones, the lymphatic capillaries, have got more valves. And then as you get to move along these capillaries, you are going to be able to find dilations. And these dilations that you can see, these ones, these swellings you can see along the lymphatic capillaries or lymphatic vessels, these are called lymph nodes. They are there to make sure that they filter lymph. Remember, lymph is used as protection in the body. So when lymph is being taken in the body, what is going to happen is that if it has got any foreign substances, those are supposed to be removed, and they are going to be removed in lymph nodes. And there are a lot of different lymph nodes in the body, especially in the axilla. Axilla is the armpit. You have got a lot of lymph nodes there, and you would know them or you know their names. I remember one of my practical tests in anatomy, they just said mention the auxiliary group of lymph nodes, and there are five of them. Okay, so you know them. These vessels, you also need to know that they are arranged in superficial and deep layer. What we mean is that some are going to be found near the surface of the body, others are going to be much deep in the body. That is superficial and deep. Of these vessels, you need to understand two most important ones. These ones, it's a must you need to know, for especially for your anatomy. You have got the right lymphatic duct. So the lymph in the entire body, okay, the lymph in the entire body, after it has been corrected, it goes to the capillaries, it goes to the trunks, it will go then now to these ducts. So the destination before the lymph can go back into blood vessels to become blood, the last destinations they'll reach are the lymphatic ducts, and you only have two lymphatic ducts, the right lymphatic duct and the left lymphatic duct. So your right upper limb, so we call the entire of this one as the upper limb. This portion is the arm, you have got the forearm and then the hand at the bottom. So the arm, the forearm, and the hand together with the half of the chest and half of the head, as you can see being cut. This region, the right region, all the lymph will go into the right lymphatic duct. Okay, the right lymphatic duct. And then the majority of the lymph will actually go to the left lymphatic duct. The left lymphatic duct is also known as the thoracic duct. That's the other name. And it's a common name that you use. So you just be hearing thoracic duct. Mostly not even use the left lymphatic duct. The thoracic duct is going to begin in front of L1. Now, if you look at your backbone, okay, the bones which support your spinal cord, they are vertebrae bones. You are going to have the cervical vertebrae, the lumbar vertebrae, the thoracic, and the sacral. So this L means it's lumbar vertebrae number one. This is where it is going to begin. This is where the thoracic duct begins. And it is actually collecting lymph. It is beginning as a dilated sac which is called cisterna chyli. So in the abdomen is this region where you are going to find the intestines and these other things. There is a dilated end, okay, at L1. That dilated end is what we call as the cisterna chyli. So the lymph is going to move all the way from the bottom of the legs and all the way in this region, go to the cisterna chyli, and then it will be transported to the thoracic duct. From the thoracic duct, it will go now to the veins and then go to the heart. It has become blood. You understand more about this when we discuss the anatomy of this thing. Okay. Now let's talk about organs. Organs which are involved in fighting infection. So those organs which are involved in fighting infections, we call them lymphoid organs. So on the lymphoid organs, you have got the central lymphoid organs and the peripheral lymphoid organs. The central lymphoid organs, these ones also called as the primary lymphoid organs. These lymphoid organs, what do they do? Every time you hear of central or primary lymphoid organ, these are lymphoid organs which make cells which are involved in fighting infections. So their aim or their job is to make cells. Apart from making cells, their job is also to mature cells. Only those two. Okay? Making cells, lymphoid cells, and also maturing the lymphoid cells. Those two functions. And there are only two central lymphoid organs, the bone marrow and the thymus. Do you have any question here before I proceed? Are we moving together so far? Or I have lost someone on the way? Are we good? You can be talking alone all this while. Are people here? Okay. So now the peripheral lymphoid organs. Peripheral lymphoid organs. These lymphoid organs, they do not make cells which are involved in the immune system, and they do not mature cells involved in the immune system. Their aim is just to make sure that they get those cells which have been made in the bone marrow and matured in either the bone marrow or the thymus. They get those cells, and then now for those cells to start working, performing their function, they're supposed to be in the peripheral lymphoid organs. Okay, that's the only way they can perform their function. So the peripheral lymphoid organs is a place or a location of the function or the reactivity of the cells which have been made in the central lymphoid organs. And the peripheral lymphoid organs are a lot. You are going to have the spleen, the lymph nodes, lymphatic channels, tonsils, adenoids, Peyer's patches, the appendix. We are going to understand each one of these. If we just look at these ones, then we are done with the class. Okay, but it's not short. So this is what we can see. You can see we have got tonsils there in the mouth. The thymus is just in front here. It's actually on top of the heart. And then you have got your bone there, which contains bone marrow. And then you have got the Peyer's patches. The Peyer's patches are found in the small intestines. The spleen is just found next to the stomach there, and these others. So starting with the central, which are also known as the primary lymphoid organs, we'll start with bone marrow. Bone marrow is going to contain stem cells. What we mean by stem cells is that these cells can actually uh, give you other cells. So the bone marrow contains stem cells for different blood cells. So the all the cells that you find in blood, most almost like let's just say all of them, they actually come from the bone marrow, and they'll begin as stem cells. And there will be two stem cells which are going to come out. You have got the myeloid progenitor and the lymphoid progenitor. You are going to understand this. These are the questions which come: anatomy and also just this course. So in the bone marrow, that is where we produce. We have got some cells which we call the T cells and the B cells. Okay. Now the naming of these cells depend with where they mature from. T cells, which is also known as the T lymphocytes, these ones they mature in the thymus. That T is thymus. And then B cells mature in the bone marrow. But both T cells and B cells are produced in the bone marrow. Please take note. Both are produced in the bone marrow, but T cells mature in the thymus, B cells mature in the same bone marrow. Okay. To mature, we mean they just become active to make their function. So you need to know this diagram here, but it is very easy. It's very, very easy. So in the bone marrow, you have got stem cells. Remember, we said that stem cells are cells that will be used to produce other cells. All other blood cells, they'll come from a stem cell. The stem cells in the bone marrow are called hematopoietic stem cells. Hematopoietic stem cells. Okay. These are known as multipotential because they have got a big potential. They have got different potentials. The meaning of that is they can form, the potential is they can form different types of cells. That's the meaning of multipotential. All right. So we call them hematopoietic stem cells, also known as the hematopoietic. The name is kind of trick. Hematopoietic stem cells. Okay, let me just use that. Okay. So these hematopoietic stem cells, what they do is that, remember, they are stem, meaning that they give rise to all blood cells. They are going to divide into two lineages. You know what a lineage is, right? If you say this is the family where this person comes from, the lineage is starting like from the the grandparents, the great great great, and then you are going down like that. So the hematopoietic stem cells will give the common myeloid progenitor or myeloid lineage and the lymphoid lineage. These two, myeloid, lymphoid, myeloid, lymphoid. The lymphoid is very easy. So the lymphoid only makes one type of cell, and those we call them as the uh, lymphocytes. So you have got large lymphocytes and small lymphocytes, just as you can hear from the word common lymphoid. So I've got large lymphocytes and small lymphocytes. If you hear of large lymphocytes, these are called the natural killers. They are known as natural killers because they kill anything that comes to the body naturally. All right, they are part of the body like that. Natural killers. And then the small lymphocytes, they are of two types. You have got the T cells and the B cells. This is very important. So there are basically only three types of cells which come from the lymphoid progenitor: natural killer cells, T cells, and B cells. The natural killer cells, you mostly see them written as NK. We get the N from natural and K killer. So NK cells. So what are the cells from the lymphoid progenitor? Natural killer and the lymphocytes, the T lymphocytes and the B lymphocytes. When the B lymphocytes, this B lymphocyte will start producing antibodies. Now antibodies will not actually be produced by it. What happens is that for the B cell to work, it will first differentiate and form what is called a plasma cell. A plasma cell will produce antibodies will still start fighting infections. All right, like that. And then that B cell which matures sometime later, when you, let's say you were sick, right? You were sick of a certain disease, you produce plasma cells. These plasma cells will produce antibodies, and then later on these will remain as memory cells. They will have memory, so that next time you are sick of the same disease, they are going to be able to produce antibodies. So B cells actually gives you plasma cells and memory cells, okay? And then now on the myeloid progenitor, on the myeloid progenitor, we're going to have megakaryocyte. Megakaryocytes will give you the thrombocytes. Thrombocytes are the platelets. So platelets come from the myeloid. Erythrocytes, which are the red blood cells, will also come from the myeloid. You also have mast cells. If you have got an allergy, for example, every time you take aspirin, maybe you react. So these cells are the ones which are involved in allergic reaction, mast cells. And then you also have now the myoloblast. These the myoloblast, they'll give what we call the fuse: basophils, neutrophils, eosinophils, and then apart from the fuse, you also have the monocyte. So apart from natural killer cells, T cells, B cells, any other cells I'll mention on a multiple choice question, just know that it is coming from the myeloid. The mast cells and the basophils, these two guys are involved in allergic reactions. You can see the monocyte. The monocyte has got a nucleus which looks like a kidney. Okay, that is one thing which can come in anatomy multiple choice questions, even just in this course. Monocytes can give you macrophages and what we call dendritic cells if they mature, because monocytes are found in blood. When these monocytes start going to specific regions in the body, they'll become macrophages. So if they start going in specific tissue, we'll discuss more about this because this is actually another topic on its own. Red blood cells have got a lifespan of 120 days, and they are produced at a rate of about 2.5 times 10.9 per liter. Okay, this is how much you produce in a day. Neutrophils have got a lifespan of 7 hours, meaning that within a day, if they are produced, they'll be able to die. The platelets, which are involved in blood clotting, they have got a lifespan of just about 10 days. But at least take note of the red blood cells, the lifespan 120 days, which is 3 months. So, what produces these blood cells in the body? So, before birth, from 0 months to 9 months, at the beginning Okay, at the beginning, when the baby is in the womb, the baby is 0 months, 1 month, 2 months. The major site which produces blood or blood cells is the yolk sac. You understand this when we do embryology, the yolk sac. Just take note of that. And then on the middle of the term, like from nearly, especially on the fourth month, starting from third month, fourth month, fifth month, the major site which produces red blood cells becomes the liver. The spleen also produces blood cells. And then as you go around the sixth month, lymph nodes also be producing blood cells. And then as a child gets to grow in the womb before birth, the major site which will be producing blood will be the bone marrow. Okay, all these other places will stop producing blood cells. But then as a child grows, when the child is born, of now the bone marrow, which type of bones produce blood or blood cells? They're actually long bones. We are going to talk about these classifications of bones. Long bones, you have got the tibia. This is a long bone of your leg. You also have so the tibia will be producing blood, but it stops producing blood and blood cells by 19 years, somewhere there, 18, 19. The femur, which is also a very long bone of your thigh, this one will be producing blood and it will stop around the 23rd year, after 23 years, somewhere there. What will continue producing blood will be the bones which are mostly connected to the midline. What we mean by midline is the middle of the body. The vertebral bones, those bones which hold the spinal cord. The sternum, okay? The sternum is this camera bone which looks like a necktie. The camera bone which is on the middle of your chest. And then also the ribs. This will be the bones which will continue producing blood in the body for the rest of the years and blood cells. So that was on the bone marrow. And then the thymus. The thymus is also a primary lymphoid organ. Okay? Primary lymphoid organ, meaning that it is a place where maturation happens. Now, the thymus doesn't produce anything. Remember, I said primary lymphoid organs produce and mature cells. The thymus doesn't produce any cells, it just matures cells, and the cells that it matures is known as the T cells. That is why thymus T cells. Those same T lymphocytes which you saw which came from the lymphoid progenitor, they are going to mature here after they've been produced in the bone marrow. The thymus is this one. This is the heart you can see here. And don't worry, you'll be seeing this live. Not that no, we know of the heart. You'll see the live heart, the live lungs, the live thymus from a real human being. Okay, so just on top of the of the heart, you have got that is where I've got the thymus. It has got two lobes. You can see it has got two parts: the right lobe and the left lobe. Okay. The thymus is very big in children, but in adults it shrinks. It almost completely vanishes. That is why adults, as you get to grow, you are more prone to being sick because you don't have these cells which are like protecting you. The thymus, which is supposed to mature T cells which are involved in fighting infections. The thymus is in the thoracic cavity, your chest, where your chest is inside. We call that space as the thoracic cavity. The thymus is going to secrete what is known as the lymphopoietin. Lymphopoietin is the one which is involved in the maturation of T cells. So this is how the thymus looks, and there will be a point when you are going to desperately look for this slide which you can see here, because the way your not anatomy is, anyway, we'll talk about that. You're supposed to know this slide. Immediately you see this slide, you should know that this is the thymus. Whether they give you this or this, you should be able to know that this is the thymus. You've got the thymus in an adult and the thymus in a child. The thymus in an adult, you can see it has got a white part and then a dark part. In an adult, most of the tissue in the thymus is replaced by fat. So these white things you can see is fat. We call it adipose tissue. I'll mention again, these slides needs to be in your head. Some of these are what made us to cross second year. These same slides. Okay. So as you can see, the thymus is going to have this dark part is the cortex, and then this middle part you can see is the medulla. Now the cortex, which is the outer part, has got a capsule. A capsule is just a covering. So a capsule is the outermost covering of the thymus, and then you can see the capsule is actually entering and going inside the cortex. And when the capsule goes inside the cortex, it becomes what is known as a septa. That's what you can see as S there. It becomes a septa, right? So the cortex of the thymus, which is more dark, has maturing T cells. That is why you find T cells which are maturing in the cortex. But the medulla has T cells which are already matured. You also have one important thing which is also known as called Hassel's corpuscle or the thymic corpuscle. These corpuscles, the Hassel's corpuscle, are found in the medulla. They are only in the medulla. So these are just aggregations of cells together like that. So you are going to find cells together, epithelial cells together. We call them Hassel's corpuscle. Where are they located? In the medulla. Anatomy questions. Medulla, okay, of the thymus. So these Hassel's corpuscle, they'll be able to secrete cytokines. Cytokines are basically different cells which are going to be involved in different reactions in the body to fight infections. Okay, and they also be able to include other factors that will promote the development of the T cells. The primary function of the thymus is to support the maturation of T cells. So in the thymus, there are a lot of important things that happen. Thymic education. So there is going to be an education of the thymus. We understand that. You also have immunological tolerance. So tolerance is where you are tolerating some things. To tolerate something means that even if it's doing what is wrong, you are letting it to happen, to go. So in the thymus, what will happen is this. If say the T cells which are maturing, they are killing cells which belong to us. Some of those T cells, they can actually be allowed to go. So that is tolerance. Okay? Even if they are killing our own cells, but they can still escape, because normally a T cell shouldn't kill a cell which belongs to your body. Should kill a foreign substance. But here, these ones are killing what belongs to our body. So that is what leads to what is known as positive selection and negative selection. We understand what that means. Okay. So what is the role of the thymus in T cell maturation and selection? The thymus, we have said, is a site of T cell differentiation and the selective removal of T cells. So those T cells which will react to self-antigens, in other words, they are destroying what belong to our bodies. Those T cells are supposed to be removed. Okay? They're supposed to be removed. Why should they be removed? Because if they are allowed to continue to go into blood like that, they'll start killing our own cells and you end up dying. Okay. So T lymphoblasts arriving in, initially you have got a T lymphoblast which are coming from the bone marrow, they go into the thymus. And these T cells, they do not contain CD4, CD8. And for now you can't understand that. This is very important. Anyway, I'm going to describe more about this when we talk, because it's going to be a topic. T cell maturation. But just know that the T cells do not express CD4 or CD8. These CD4 or CD8, they are important in recognizing anything that has to be fought. Imagine you want to fight this thing, you know that it does not belong to this body. You want to fight it. How do you fight it? You need the CD4 and the CD8 proteins. The T cells also are supposed to contain TCR. This is a T cell receptor. So take note of these three things. The T cell is supposed to express CD4, CD8, and T cell receptor. Okay. So what will happen is that these T lymphoblasts will continue to populate the cortex. They are arriving in the cortex for them to continue maturing. And then after they get to mature, they are going to start expressing now your T cell receptor, and they will express CD4 and CD8 receptors. They are maturing in that way. So the cells are going to be examined by positive selection. What do you mean by positive selection? With a cell survival depending on whether T cell receptors can recognize and bind on the MHC molecules properly. So what happens is this. Remember we are saying these T cells are supposed to have CD4, CD8, and T cell receptor. These are basically receptors. A receptor is something that can recognize something. Now, when you have got a cell that has got CD4, we call it the rule of 8. There is a molecule which is called MHC. MHC. We are going to talk about these molecules later on. You have got MHC class 1, MHC class 2. So the rule of 8 says that CD4 supposed to bind, supposed to recognize MHC class 2. Like multiply 4 by 2, that gives you 8. And then CD8 is supposed to recognize MHC class 1. 8 by 1 is 8 also. That is the rule of 8. So a cell that contains CD4 is going to recognize and bind antigens on the MHC class 2. So positive selection means that if you have got a cell, right, a cell that has got CD4, CD8, and then it has got the T cell receptor. If it can recognize MHC class, then good, okay, good for that cell. It is going to go to the next step. That is known as positive selection. In other words, you've crossed your first year. Now you are going to second year. That is positive selection. So positive selection can only occur if the T cell receptors on the T cell can recognize and bind antigens on the MHC molecules. Okay, very important. Now, in the medulla, T cells with T cell receptors which are functional will now encounter antigens. Antigens are just proteins which belong to our bodies. Okay, so when they do encounter these antigens, if you have got cells where the T cell receptors are going to bind self antigens, what we mean is that this cell is actually holding the antigens or the proteins which belong to our bodies and destroying them. Such cells, they shouldn't go to the next level. In other words, a med 2 who wants to destroy their friend, they shouldn't go to the next level. So think of that. So a T cell that is binding self antigens should not go to the next level. That is what is known as negative selection. Hope you know now the difference between negative selection. So negative selection means it shouldn't go to the next level because it is binding to our own antigens or our own proteins. Positive selection means it's going to the next level because it can actually bind MHC class molecule. Only about 2%, all the T cells which are developing, only 2% of them will pass positive and negative selection. You've seen how hard it is. And this is what happens also in medical school. Okay? Of the total number that goes, you see a very small portion. And that portion, you should be one of those. So positive selection happens in the cortex, negative selection happens in the medulla. That is what is important. Okay. So we have got what is known as tolerance. This is actually going to be a topic on its own, but just to mention it, you have got central tolerance and peripheral tolerance. Central tolerance is a mechanism to eliminate self-reactive lymphocytes. So if you know that these T cells are actually reacting with our own antigens, they can actually kill me. Self-tolerance is a mechanism to eliminate self-reactive lymphocytes during their initial development. You want to eliminate them. While peripheral tolerance is a mechanism to eliminate self-reactive lymphocytes. But this is happening in peripheral tissue. Every time you're talking about central, it should be those T cells or B cells which are fighting our own antigens, they are being killed in either the bone marrow or in the thymus, that is central tolerance. But in case they escape, okay, they don't get to be killed in the bone marrow or the thymus, they end up going in those other tissues talked about, like the spleen and those other regions. They start killing our own antigens. So in that case, what we are going to do is, in those places the body can actually destroy those T cells, and that is known as peripheral tolerance, right? So we are going to end here on the peripheral or the secondary lymphoid organs. We'll look at them in the next class.